Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of the World Water Quality Alliance and fellow attendees of the WWQA Conference of 2023. My name is Adenike Akinsemolu. I am the founder and director of the Green Institute. At the Green Institute, our mission is to build the next generation of sustainability leaders through education, advocacy, and innovation. Today, we're going to be discussing, obviously, water. According to a recent report by the United Nations, approximately 40% of the world's population reside within about 100 kilometers of coastline, making them disproportionately susceptible to devastating impacts of climate change and anthropogenic activities. Over the course of the decade, I have been researching actively in coastal communities, specifically of the Ilaje community in Ondo State, Nigeria. Coastal women in climate crisis. Is there any hope for a sustainable future? These pictures are taken over the course of my research in this community. In coastal communities, one of the things that are very, very prevalent in those regions is waterborne diseases. And this is a consequence of polluted water sources in this community. And more specifically, this afflicts millions of women worldwide. But in sub-Saharan Africa alone, women and girls are responsible for water collection in 71% of households. Yet, as per the World Health Organization, 80% of global water diseases are linked to inadequate water supply, sanitation, and hygiene, disproportionately affecting women who bear the brunt of water fetching responsibility. In fact, in the course of my research, I've met a lot of young girls who have talked about being raped on their way to fetch water. Some of those waterborne diseases include cholera that is caused by the bacteria Vibrio cholerae, typhoid by the bacteria Salmonella typhimurium, and even some maternal health and reproductive illnesses have been linked to polluted water. Now, let's turn back our attention back to the larger community. Climate change disrupts the traditional livelihood of its women, primarily centered around fishing and agriculture. These women, who are often the primary caregivers in their communities, bear the weight of ensuring their loved ones have enough to eat and access to clean water. However, the intrusion of saltwater due to rising sea levels further diminishes the availability of safe drinking water. Like your community, there are a lot of oil companies, multinationals in those regions, and there is an improper waste disposal that contaminates their water sources. And rendering it very, very unsafe for consumption. But also, it's also a source of, like I said, debilitating health problems, particularly for women who are frequently tasked with water collection. So these are some of the pictures that were taken during the course of research. You can see how heavily polluted the water sources are, but these women still have to provide for their family. And although also, in addition to that, climate change-related disasters like flood and storms can displace entire community, leaving the women and children particularly vulnerable to the loss of shelter, food security, and access to healthcare and education. In such dire circumstances, women are often compelled to take on additional responsibilities to ensure their family survival, even as resources become more scarce. And it's very, very hard for these women to immigrate, to leave the community to other communities. However, it is imperative to recognize that women within this community are more susceptible to the adverse effects of this climate change. So we need to start thinking about how do we include these women in decision-making processes, and how can they be active players so that they can put their own future in their hands. So as we deliberate and engage in discussions throughout this conference, let us keep in mind the importance of addressing the unique vulnerability faced by women in such circumstances and work towards equitable and sustainable solutions that empower them to adapt, to mitigate, and to build resilience in the face of these challenges and crises. Now, if you look at this picture again of this woman, let's take a look at the one more time picture of look at this one more time and look at this woman. I ask you again, is there any hope for a sustainable future? Well, I'll leave you with this video. Thank you. The world is currently experiencing a water crisis, and it's time for us to accelerate the change we need to tackle it. In Africa, women from various communities, including Ayetoro in Ilaje, Ondo State, Nigeria, and Mombasa, Kenya, are particularly affected by this crisis. These women spend several hours every day collecting contaminated water, which poses significant health risks to them and their families. They are also responsible for caring for sick family members who are falling ill from waterborne diseases. However, this is not solely a gender or African problem, as over 663 million people worldwide consume unsafe and contaminated water, which poses a severe threat to their health and well-being. Shockingly, globally, at least 1.8 billion people rely on drinking water sources contaminated with feces. Unsafe water and inadequate sanitation kill more people annually than violence and war combined. It is time for urgent action to address this global crisis which affects us all. Nevertheless, there is still hope. Clean water changes everything, from improving health and increasing school attendance to empowering women and boosting economies. We can all contribute in some way to accelerate change. We can conserve water in our homes, support organizations working towards providing clean water, and advocate for policy prioritizing access to safe water and sanitation for all. To emphasize this point, let me share the story of the hummingbird. Once upon a time, in a great forest where animals lived together harmoniously, a fire broke out, causing chaos and fear. Amidst the panic, a tiny hummingbird decided to take action. The other animals ridiculed her efforts, but the hummingbird persisted and continued to carry small drops of water in her beak to put out the flames. Her determination inspired the other animals to join in and contribute in their unique ways, ultimately saving the forest. The hummingbird story served as a reminder that we all have a role to play in addressing the water crisis. Despite feeling insignificant, we must take action and make changes in our lives to tackle the issue. Together, our small efforts can add up to significant changes, accelerating progress and making a real difference for communities worldwide. We must become officially green and work together to create a world when clean water is accessible to everyone, regardless of their circumstances. Join us in the fight for clean water by visiting officiallygreen.org and learning more about the crisis and how you can help. This Water Day, let us be the change we want to see in the world.